In this episode,
I'm at FPL_Gaffer, and today we're going to be talking about the Saints.
The Fantasy Football Show.
hello listeners, welcome to episode 10 of the Planet FPL 30 in 30. My name is Suj.
My name is James.
10 means we're a third of the way through. It's a bit of a marathon sprint.
It's the
marathon
third,
sprint, a marathon of podcasts. We are on to episode 10, and who do we have with us today? James, I'll let you do the intro today.
We have Ali, our Southampton correspondent, FPL Gaffer. How are you, Ali?
Hiya, gents. Yeah, very well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for coming on, mate. Before we start and go into sort of stuff with Southampton, I just wanted to speak to you briefly about your work with FPL Academica, what you've done and where you're at with it for the listeners who might not be aware of you.
Yeah, no worries. So, FPL Academica started up in February last year, so February 2018. It was myself and who was FPL Noob at the time, but he rebranded himself to FPL Drew, who tends to control quite a lot of the admin stuff of it. He's a guru of the things that he does. And JJ and Cadet, who rebranded to El Stato, or I can't even remember, El Tel or something. I can't remember.
El Tel, he's your mate, mate.
Yeah, that's it. I still call him Cadet in our group, so I'm a bit old school, to be fair. But so it started back in February last year, and it was like a slow burner. So we started off with Differentiation 101, and that was kind of all we did. And then different people got in contact with us about different ideas that they'd like to launch through the site, and we were all for that, and all credit went to those individuals and we just sort of put it out on a larger platform. And we started the season just gone with a starting strong series, we called it. And it was great. How we start strong in FPL, and it went really well. I mean, I followed it to a T and had an amazing start, as I've always shouted about on Twitter, and then it ended quite poorly. I'm sure we'll go on to that later, but yeah, so it started really well, and then Differentiation 101 kind of fell away a little bit, as I know the other guys, we're all teachers, and they, term time just gets busy halfway through the year, and so we had to kind of put it on hold. But some of the other guys have been launching some great stuff, but the plan is that we're still going to do starting strong again for the upcoming season, and we'll do a revamped version of Differentiation 101 with more sort of like one-off ad hoc pieces, and sort of how it depends on how the FPL climate dictate, is how we'll move forward. So yeah, we've got a lot of stuff coming from Varun and from Aditya as well. So yeah, loads going on coming up.
It's a spin-off pod as well, is that right?
Yeah, so Aditya runs this pod, and he does it with a few different guests, the Academica Vertex one, and it's going really well. So it's solely run by him. Drew has quite a lot of input about the content that goes involved, but apart from that, he kind of runs it, gets his guests on, and really happy with how that's going. How
does Drew have time to do anything when he's too busy retweeting everything on Twitter? Sometimes I just want to cut in and just say this. So sometimes I'll be looking through my timeline and something really fucking abnormal will pop up, and I know straight away it's Drew's retweeting. Every time. If I didn't like him, I'd block that bastard, mate.
Yeah. He dabbles in everything, and you just can't mute enough words to keep up with him. He just retweets everything.
Sometimes though, he brings some brilliant things to your attention. You go,
sometimes non-football related as well. But yeah,
he really should start his own little comedy account, I think.
He could as well, and he's quite opinionated as well, which is what I like about him. Like, he's not afraid to tell you how it is.
He's a Southend fan, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right, and he gives it large in our little group chat as well.
Good lad, you've got to. And JJ, I know is Villa, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's Villa, and obviously buzzing with their situation.
Yeah, cool.
He's as he's posted on his own Twitter a few times. He's had a few issues going on in his life outside of the footballing world, but so we wish him well and stuff. But that must have been a real sort of boost, because football controls a lot of our emotions as involved as we are, and so that would have been great for him to see
football
them
and
come up.
FPL. To be fair, I think FPL creates half the negative emotions in my life. To be fair.
Oh, I know. Done it just. I was so close to packing it in, but I just managed to keep.
Go
going.
on, elaborate.
So I was just pulling up my game week history there, and I've posted it a few times. So following the starting strong,
Do you just want to? I'm going to interrupt. Do you just want to cover just the first 34 game weeks, or?
Well, just the first 19 would be even better. So,
what was your final overall rank then in the end?
My final overall rank dropped to 157k.
He beat me by 3 points.
Wow.
Did I actually?
Yeah.
And what about after game week 19 then? How high were you then?
I'm not sure how I would.
2k, mate.
2k. James is on it.
Yeah. So in game week 17, I was 2,071, and I had a team value of 106 mil.
Wow.
And I was just flying, and I'm just looking at the green arrows now. I'd had 3 green arrows in the first 17 game weeks. So, it was an amazing start. And I knew I would struggle to keep it up, but it was just how I felt every week going into each game week after that I was in a strong position, and my players just did sweet fuck all for me. And I made a few of those, the starting strong series was all about picking those players that are going to bring you points and finding your differentials elsewhere. And I did that. And then I started to take some sort of like 50-50 decisions rather than going for the 70 over the 30 ones. And they just didn't work out for me.
Just elaborate what you mean on that with the 50-50 and 70-30 choices.
So there were a few where my team value allowed me to have a really strong squad, and I had a really strong bench, and it was hard to pick a lot of the time. And rather than choosing a player that had, was in fantastic form and had a difficult fixture, we always say that form over fixture and that sort of stuff. So that would lead me towards the 70-30. I'd go for someone that had a decent fixture and, was maybe just sort of dabbling in some form, and they wouldn't return. And I had a lot of points on my bench. I think my highest in 1 week was 43. And that was just, it was a killing blow, to be fair.
43 on the bench. That's more than 10 per player.
That's the sort of shit that the official account grabs and goes, you think you've had a bad week?
Retweet that. But more than 10 per player on your bench is insane. I don't think I've ever had a bench that high.
That's better than most of your weeks.
Well, forget that. 50 is my average.
Yeah, I couldn't really, that particular week, I couldn't really help it. I had Lucas Dean, who scored a brace, and I can't remember who he was playing. I think it was Burnley away.
Burnley, the 5-1 Christmas time.
Yeah, and then I benched Felipe Anderson against my beloved Saints because he'd gone on a run of about 5 games without scoring, and then of course he scored a brace.
Thursday night on the telly,
and we were 1-0 up in that game.
You were.
Yes, I remember watching it well.
Yeah, so wasn't my week.
No.
Wow. And how did it finish, mate? Because I think it's listening to you, you can tell your passion for the game coming across when you're speaking.
Yeah.
Your rank at the end of game week 34, I believe, was still about 40k.
29k at the end of 34. Then I dropped to 44 at the end of 35, and then I kept setting myself these new targets of okay, I've dropped to 29k. Let's see if I can get back into the top 25. And then it was like, oh, I'm 44k now. Let's try and keep it in the top 50. And then it was like, bang, down to 100k you go.
Yeah, this game can punish you so quickly.
Yeah,
if you don't have the right captain pick.
My team was good. It was just the points were just so poor. I had I had a game week where it was 31 and I scored 25 points, 0 on my, and I think that was a blank game week, but it was just, there were blank game week scores of, I think, 80 plus that week.
It did become difficult towards the end of the season when Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea and Man United were all trying to fight their way out of the top 4 and losing games week in, week out. So your top 6 players, if you had quite a few from those clubs, they just weren't returning, and that's what made it very difficult at the end of the season.
Yeah, and then we had some, great budget players that were doing wonderful things. I mean, a few in Southampton that were just James Ward-Prowse, who was just banging them in for fun, and people just wouldn't really consider him because of Southampton's league position more than anything else.
Well, Ali, we talk about him every single week on this podcast. Suj has a massive man crush on Ward Prowse.
Love him.
Yeah,
I had him at the end of the season as well. It was nice. Didn't play week in, week out, but I had him.
Yeah.
But then also, obviously, Everton went on their great run of clean sheets, so not many people had their eye on them defensively at the time. Brendan Rodgers, Leicester came back and were doing well. So there were a lot of budget options around, and everyone had piled into maybe the top 4 because you like to pick players that have got something to play for, right? You don't want to have beach teams, as they call them, like my West Ham were real culprits of that.
I don't recall a season like that where the top 4 have been that poor that often, you know.
Yeah, we didn't have to do a lot, mate. Yeah. It's interesting because we had Neil at FPL Canal on episode 6, Ali, and he was the same. He started like a train. He was around about 2K at Christmas and had a big drop off as well. Is there any lessons you think you've learned on the season? Because you sound like you haven't really got any regrets. I thought you were going to be, I can't believe it finished like that.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I have tweeted a few times like there's not really much I could have done differently because, you know, I was making some really logical decisions, and I obviously posted my thread about it, and I made some really logical decisions that just didn't work out. And I think that towards the end of the season, I probably have a few regrets, like I was making some panic transfers or whatever. But, you know, I think my season, it hadn't gone like 157k isn't bad. It's just compared to where, you know, you can't help but compare to your best rank. And yeah, exactly. And it had gone as far as I was concerned by that point. But between sort of Boxing Day and February, I think I just made some bad calls that next season will hopefully work out for me.
He was top of our correspondent league for ages.
Yep.
I was looking at your team nearly every week, Ali, and we was having a bit of banter about it because I looked at one stage and I was like, I'm never catching him. We've got about 8 the same players.
Yeah.
Never catching him. And then it just fell off a bit at the end for you. But I think that still your best rank ever?
Yeah, it was. So when I started playing FPL, it was back in 2012, 2013, and I mean, I was in the 2 million, so I can only imagine that I just didn't really understand it and kind of gave up or whatever. My next 3 were all in the 1 million, so sort of I'm guessing I, lost a bit of interest, forgot a couple of weeks or whatever. And then 2016-17, I joined the Twitter community halfway through that season and finished just inside the top 400k. And then the season after that, 17-18, again just inside the top 400k. And then this season was my best rank.
Yeah, and it's amazing the amount of stories you hear online in terms of people saying, since I joined the community. It's just until you know about it, you don't realise the pods, the data, everything that's out there is so readily available.
I never used to really pay attention past Christmas on FPL until we did start the pod, which ended up the season before last of my highest ever rank at 274k or something, and then I consumed a load more content, and last year finished 730k. So for everyone that's done better, there's one of me that's done worse. I was going to say,
Ali, you said at one point you thought you didn't know what you was doing. Suj still doesn't, mate. So don't worry about it.
It was all luck. It's just a fucking guessing game, yeah.
It is, yeah. I mean, and I had, I don't think he's part of the FPL community. I don't even remember his Twitter handle now, but he asked me for like two pieces of advice for an upcoming game week, and I gave him my opinion on both. One of them returned and one of them didn't, and he replied after the game week saying, "Oh, thanks a lot for advising that I bench this player or don't transfer in this player." And I was like, yeah, you're criticising me for that, but I must have missed that tweet where you thanked me for the guy that did just return for you. Do you know what I mean? So it's a case of 50-50, and the guys in the community, you and I included, we do our research, but at the end of the day, those players have got to stick that ball in the net, haven't they?
Yeah, it's an opinion at the end of the day. People got to manage their own teams.
Yeah, we try and treat ours very much. We always have as like, look, listen to it, enjoy it, but at the end of it, make your own fucking decisions. Like you can ask us in questions, we'll answer them on the pod, but don't do what we do, right? It's not going to work out definitely. For you. Make your own decisions. Let's talk Saints, mate, because. Okay, mate. 2018 was a fairly horrific year. Was it about 4 calendar wins in the league throughout the whole year? I think you didn't win a home game from January to November or December.
Yeah, that was right. Yeah, it was it was a painful year where we were just throwing away winning positions. I was at St Mary's quite early on in the season when Leicester came to us and we were 1-0 up, and it was Redmond that scored a beautiful goal, and then Harry Maguire
late goal, daisy cutter.
Oh yeah, it was, and I sort of always sit in that corner just behind that goal next to the away fans, and it just sort of trickled in, and I was like, what's going on? And we just we got really nervous towards the end. We threw away a 2-0 lead against Brighton and drew that game. And early on in the season that they're going to be the teams that are down there with us, and we need to be taking the points off of them, not gifting them to them.
Do you think that, looking back in hindsight, obviously Koeman did quite well. It was Koeman straight after Pochettino, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Koeman did pretty well, really. And then Claude Puel, cup final, was he 8th in the league? Do you think, looking back in hindsight, I mean, that was a big mistake to let him go, or?
Potentially. I mean, obviously I think Koeman was sort of destined for bigger things anyway. With Puel, he did a good job. I think there was a lot of criticism around the style of play that
it's quite negative, isn't it? Yeah,
it was, and it was quite negative. It did get results, and it's a hard one to judge. He did a good job, and I think he could have pushed the team. He made a couple of poor signings, like Gabbiadini didn't really. He started quite well, but he didn't amount to much, and there was a bit of that really. And then obviously Mark Hughes came in to do a job, and Mark Hughes is great at doing that. I mean, he's got a few teams relegated, but he's great at escaping relegation, and he managed to do that. And I just think that obviously he got the backing of the board then, and he's a manager that is going to take a team to just escape relegation. But I don't think that's where we are. I thought we were a bit better than that. So
we definitely had better players than that.
You even forget like Pellegrino in the middle of that as well, right? That was pretty. It was dark as well. It was almost felt like, from an outsider looking in, felt almost like a clone of Puel, like nothing had changed, and except the fact that defensively you'd become worse. Yeah,
that's it. And I mean, we were home and away to Inter Milan only three and a half seasons ago. How on earth can you go from that to just scraping relegation and losing to teams like Cardiff? No disrespect to them, but you can't go from playing in Europe to struggling consistently like we were.
True. There are a couple of signs you can point to that are clear indications of why that happened, and the first is obviously becoming Liverpool's feeder club. Selling all of your best players to them obviously doesn't help. That combined with Mark Hughes, who I really think lost it towards the end with Southampton, is gonna put you in that position to struggle. But the underlying fundamentals of the club aren't bad, and that's been proven by Hassenhuttl since he's come in and kind of turned it around. But definitely, any side that loses the likes of Mane and obviously Van Dijk left a bit later, but losing Van Dijk and all the other players that you lost
further, didn't you? To
Lallana,
Bale, Walcott, Chamberlain. What a fucking side they could have had.
And you also had players that, whilst they didn't go to other Premier League clubs or what have you, like I always liked Tadic. I thought he was a good player. He could have been. He was one of those, even in FPL, that priced at like 6 million or 6.5 million could bring in a lot of points per million. And so you've always had decent players there or thereabouts, and that you still got the likes of Redmond, Ward-Prowse, that can be good FPL assets.
I think this time last year, the feeling amongst us was very much, although you'd survived with obviously that important win at Swansea, the feeling was still you would struggle again. I mean, certainly me and Suj feel like positive now about what could be for Southampton. I think if it starts well, there's every chance you can push for top half, actually.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, that when we did step against Swansea, the game prior, we were playing Everton, and we were. I was watching it because I was living in the Middle East at the time, and I was watching it with an Everton fan, and the keeper McCarthy just made a cracking save from a free kick in the last sort of 5 minutes of the game, and we just had to keep the ball in the corner. I think there were a couple of fouls given away, and it pushed the 3 minutes of added on time to about what felt like 30 more, but it was only about one more. And they went and scored and it just felt like it felt like we were going to go down there. And then when we did manage to stay up, it was such a feeling of relief. But you mentioned the club having some really good players, and they definitely do. And they've made a few poor signings recently over the last few years. I think like just players that weren't really, they didn't really have much clout to them, and they've not come in and made an impact like Elianussi, who's come in and he's not really featured. He's been injured and he's, had not the best of form and selling. But then we've, sold some great players and managed to get some money in the bank for hopefully what will be a nice investment under Ralph.
The strikers adding into that has been a struggle as well. I mean, Danny Ings, there's no doubt is a good striker, but struggled with injury this season. Shane Long, Charlie Austin, they're just not 15 to 20 goals a season.
We've said we think the priority has to be get a consistent striker. But then you look back on like Ings' numbers when he plays, they're all right, aren't they?
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with Ings other than his injury record.
If you can get 30 games out of him, he'll probably get you,
15, 18.
2 in every 5 or something, and it will be enough at that sort of level. But you just don't see him staying fit. No. And Redmond's, who listeners will know, I think is a terrific player. Every week I go on and like him. But his numbers aren't great. I mean, he finished with 11 attacking returns by the end of the season, but he never he never really produces the numbers that you feel like he's capable of.
Yeah, I feel like we have had, we've had all different types of strikers over the last decade, ranging from, big target men to the smaller Danny Ings style striker. And there have been some, pretty decent ones, but there have also been a few that, like you say, just haven't quite reached the potential of a team that should be challenging for Europe. And obviously Shane Long's goal scoring record before he managed to grab 2 or 3 at the end of the season was one of the worst, I think, in a professional football team. It was something like, wasn't it? He'd scored 1 goal in his last 4 managers or something stupid like that.
He's the sort of player, though, Long, when you surround him with attacking midfielders who can score goals, like he doesn't jump.
He looks good.
He works hard, and actually he did have a little run sort of April time with obviously the silly early goal at Watford and that. But
the fans will never get on his back, because he is one of those players that he'll come on and he'll put in a real good shift and he'll run the channels and he'll make defenders think about, every sort of attacking play that we have. And he's that sort of player. There was we were sort of linked to Daniel Sturridge as he's leaving Liverpool. Mm-hmm. But again, I'm not sure if he'd be the player, because although he's got great quality, he's not got a great injury record.
You play him 1 week and Ings the other week.
Sounds like Liverpool becoming your feeder club now.
They're just taking the scrap from Liverpool in reverse.
But unfortunately, it's in the same way that my West Ham Arsenal are our feeder club. We clean up Arsenal's crap players. You don't want to be picking up the scrap heap from Liverpool.
Alberto Moreno coming to St Mary's near you. You heard it here first. Talk to us a little bit in terms of where you see the club going next in terms of where it needs investment, because I think although Hassenhuttl, we really like him and he's obviously made massive improvements in terms of like the running stats are off the chart compared to where they were 6 months ago. Would you say defensively is the key to fix up there?
I think I do think Ralph is the man, whereas if you'd asked me this sort of 12 months ago about Mark Hughes, there's no way you would say he's the man to push our club on. He's a club to keep us afloat. But I think Ralph has a much better attitude in terms of where he wants the club to be. Defensively, we're not too bad defensively. We've obviously got young Valerie, who's a great FPL asset at his price, and he looks to be a real attacking threat, which is what you need to be challenging for the top half of the table. So he looks quite solid. But I never quite know, when we've got a full selection of centre-backs, you never quite know who's going to start, because there was a time when Jack Stevens was in favour and he was playing quite well. And, Yoshida's quite a consistent figure in the back line. And we've got Vestergaard, who was brought in early, at the start of the season. And he's showed some inconsistencies, like the Harry Maguire goal I mentioned earlier went through his legs, and he's made a few errors like that, quite costly errors as well. So I'm not sure what our best centre back pair is, and that's
Wes Hope just got binned, didn't he?
Because he was in favour like Jack Stevens for a while, and then all of a sudden he wasn't quite making the cut, and the formation kept changing for a while. Whereas I think Hassenhuttl has found a pretty consistent formation that he's quite happy with. And yeah, it's just finding that best sort of back four, as it were, rather than a best 11, because I think he knows who his best attacking players are. But defensively, we are struggling, and we concede goals far too easily. And the boys look nervous at the back sometimes.
Do you think he'll look to go for a 4 or a 3 defensively going forward?
It's hard to say. I'd like to see him go for a 3 defensively and have sort of, Valery and Bertrand on as wing backs. That I think that would be where I'd want him to go. But obviously, I'm not the manager. I don't make decisions, and it'll be easier to start the season with 4. I think it'll be safer to start the season with 4 at the back.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can go either way. The central midfielders in the squads, I mean, Højbjerg comes up with the odd goal. You got Romeo, and I like Lamina when I see him. I think he's erratic at times, but I think he's a good player generally. Those guys do tend to sit and protect. So, I mean, the idea of a back 3 with Bertrand, I presume, will be 5 again, probably, but Valery at 4.5, particularly, I think if you were to play a back 3, could really appeal next year. Where do you see those guys being pitched price-wise, and also in terms of the attacking players, I guess particularly around Ward-Prowse, Redmond and Ings? Where do you see them being priced at?
Yeah, so they will be low. Like I think Valery will be probably starting at about 4.5. I don't think he'll start at 4 again because of the way that he ended the season. Bertrand, you don't often see players dropping in price where the team sort of finished in the same area of the table. And he wasn't terrible throughout the season. He was, in terms of FPL, he was okay for a 5 mil defender. There was definitely better options there, but he wasn't the worst by any stretch of the imagination. The attacking players, I tipped Redmond at the start of the season in my first article with you guys, and he just didn't really get off to that start. But he would definitely be one that I'd be tipping. He ended the season on fire. He looked exciting under Ralph, like he was really creative. So he'll probably be one of our most expensive assets, as it were. But the strikers will be good options again. Like Danny Ings won't be priced high because he didn't score that many FPL points because of his injury. But like you say, when he played, he returned quite well. So hopefully his injuries from last year will keep his price fairly low.
Has that been made permanent now? I don't remember. Danny Ings.
Yeah, it was a loan to an agreed permanent.
Right. Okay. So he's there and settled. I'm not sure if I suppose the only reason that Jan Valery would go up in price is because of the consistency of minutes. It wouldn't be necessarily.
But he's a regular now, and he's going to be 4.5 just on the fact he's the first choice.
And
that's it. And he did end the season really well. He scored quite a few goals, didn't he? And so I think for that, because he's that attacking fullback. And, I think because of that, he will start higher than he started last year because no one knew who he was at the start of last season.
Yeah. And James Ward-Prowse still at 5 million?
That's a tough one, isn't it? He could. Yeah, I can't see him going any higher than that because of their finishing position. I mean, they leak too many goals. They're just not, and he's not the type of player to get a goal every single game. He went on a run of getting a few goals, but I don't think that's going to come every single game, if I'm honest. But he's a solid performer, and he'll get assists, and he'll score the odd free kick, and he'll get the similar amount of points that he's got for the last couple of seasons.
The thing with Ward-Prowse, obviously, is the set pieces, right? He's your free kick, and I don't know if he takes all the corners, but from a dead ball, he does a lot of the set piece taking.
Pretty much all of them, yeah. No one even gets a sniff, yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, if you had the set piece taker for a club who's playing week in, week out at 5 million, it's not a bad shout.
This one's for Serge rather than you, Ali, but you can jump in if you know the answer.
Oh.
How many assists for James Ward-Prowse last season? Do you know, Serge?
0.
Yeah.
Was it actually?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And goals, 3 or 4?
7.
7 goals. That's
goals.
A decent goal return.
Yeah.
It's more than Shane Long for the last 5 years.
But we talk so much about the delivery, don't we?
Yeah.
So it was really surprising looking through the numbers, seeing 0 assists.
He'd probably be the type to assist the assister, I guess.
Yeah.
Secondary
the Kevin De Bruyne special. 5.5 Ward-Prowse was the start of the season. He finished at 5.1. Valery was the only one who finished at a higher price, obviously, because of that low start.
And that was after he dropped, because I remember a lot of people picked Valerie up at 3.9.
I can't see Ward-Prowse going back in at higher than 5.5.
No.
I think the real interesting one is Redmond, and not only his price, but some talk in the community, mainly because of an article on the official account the other day, that perhaps a reclassification to a forward.
Which would make him much less attractive, let's be honest.
I don't see that.
You don't see him being reclassified?
No, I don't. Yeah, any thoughts on that, Ali?
So, can you just repeat what he'd be reclassified to? Sorry.
Well, to a forward.
What? I don't know. I don't think that.
No,
would.
No,
it
do
would
I.
I definitely think it would. I don't know if it would lower his appeal, because he's not. You never really think, oh yeah, I've got the clean sheet point for a Saints midfielder. You don't really think that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that will happen.
No, I agree.
You've got to bear
I don't
in mind
see
as well,
that.
the rare goal that he does grab is worth a point less. So for me, he wouldn't really be an option then when you've got Redmond in the same side. And I don't think you'd have both.
No, Redmond wouldn't appeal to me as a forward, but I think 6 million mid again is all right, I think.
Yeah, that's it, because I don't think you'd take both Redmond and Ward-Prowse in the same side. So you're going for one or the other, really. And if you're going to take Redmond as a forward, I don't think you would want to take Ward-Prowse as well when there's other, great budget options out there.
Any chance could be 5.5 again, do you think, Redmond?
Yes. Yeah, I definitely don't see why he wouldn't be.
If he's 5.5 as a midfielder, straight in.
Yeah,
I would go.
Yeah, I think he'd be in my, depending on our fixtures, he'd be straight in my team if he was 5.5. I think if he was 6, I'd have to consider other options, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's that potential of the out of position midfielder at a low price really appeals.
Yeah, and
it's knowing his capability.
You just need to see how they're going to set up as well, because he could be reclassified on the game, but then the formation that Ralph goes with on game week 1 might, completely contradict that, and it doesn't quite work in our favour as players.
Yeah. Is there any youngsters, because there always is from your club, mate, they keep producing them. Is there any we should particularly be looking out for or keeping an eye on?
Yeah, so obviously Valerie, who we've mentioned, he's young, and it looks like he'll be staying at the club, which is, really exciting, because he's that attacking wing-back option. He's good value, and he's getting goals, which is, as a defender is amazing, especially a budget defender. But someone who's also dabbled in, the side a little bit is Josh Sims, he's played a little bit, and he's been out on loan as well. And, I'm hoping that we'll keep him in the side now, because he's someone as well that is really forward-thinking, offensive, plays, with his head up, and he'd be a really exciting option as well.
Really like what I've seen of Josh Sims. I was at your place game week 30. I had no intention of going back, by the way. Every time I go to St Mary's, I get beat. I don't fucking know why.
I love it, mate.
But Josh Sims came on at half time and basically changed the game. He just brought a different kind of energy. I think during the course of the season, he could really make, if it's going to be sort of a 4-3-3, he could be the right-hand player in that as sort of an inside forward there, and could make the position his own.
And obviously, where Elionussi didn't really take off, Josh Sims would be a fantastic option instead.
See Sims at 4.5?
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he can't be any
higher.
He's when obviously all the pricing comes out and you look at the players 4.5. You're looking for that one who can show it. Last year was a bit more difficult. I think people ended up going for the well-knowns who had done okay, like your Dale Stevenses and Højbjergs, who had historically done quite well. The year before, you remember, we had Loftus-Cheek, didn't we, and at Palace, when he was on loan there, and everybody was like, "Oh, a young talent." We're like, Josh Sims might be the one.
I'd like to see him get the minutes before I jumped in. I don't think I'd take a punt on it. But
you'd start with him on the bench to start with anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but then I think you'd find 4.5 million rated strikers that may be playing that you may want to go with. But Isaac's success.
Yeah, and there's because it is a risk to go for a player if you just don't know if he's going to get the minutes. I mean, after the World Cup, and it looked like Kieran Trippier was going to be rested for game week 1, I in my forward-thinking mind, brought in Kyle Walker-Peters, and of course Trippier started that game and it didn't work as I thought, so I had to transfer him straight out because he was never going to see minutes. And then I think he scored a hat-trick later in the season, or a brace at least. So
hat-trick of assists, wasn't
hat-trick
it?
Assists, yes.
If only I held on to him for those 30 game weeks or whatever it was.
Just for that 118-pointer off the bench, yeah.
But there's two names I just want to throw in. So that have been, well, Michael Obafemi's been out on loan.
That's the one I was going to ask you about, yeah.
Yeah, but he's obviously recalled now, and he is gas. That's the only way to describe it. Quick, and he looks quite strong as well. So I'm really excited to see him in a Saints shirt. And also we've been linked to, apologies if I pronounce this wrong, Ademola Lookman from Everton.
Yeah.
So Lookman,
top talent.
That's good pronunciation as well.
Yeah,
class. He's made a few appearances for Everton. He again really quick, and my mate that I mentioned earlier, who's a Toffees fan, can't sing his praises enough, but he's just not going to get into that Everton side, and I think he'd be a real asset for us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that room, because there was talk about him going to Germany in the January transfer window.
I don't think Ademola Lookman would be cheap.
No,
I mean,
and the
Everton
problem
bought him
is
for that 10 million as an unheard.
I've got a few friends who are Everton fans who would be up in arms if they sold Lookman. I think Everton feel like, the fans definitely feel like you've got a young talent there who is the future of the club, being kept out the side by the likes of Walcott sometimes, but they'd rather see Lookman on the pitch. So yeah, the rumours may be flying around, but James is right there. He's not going to be cheap, and I don't think Everton fans will be happy if they do sell him.
I mean, 20 million was the tag that was going around the article I was reading. So that's.
But I'd buy him to West Ham. Would buy him at 20 million. Happily.
This is the point in the podcast where I remember to say we should date this, just in case by the time it comes out he's doing someone else.
Yeah.
What's the date today? Yeah. It's Wednesday the
5th.
Wednesday the 5th. Had you had a chance, Ali? It's okay if you didn't listen to yesterday's episode 4.
I haven't, mate.
That's fine, mate. Suj coins.
I'd love to throw it on while my kids are doing their maths lessons.
Yeah, why not, mate? They'll fucking love it.
I reckon there could be some real good exam papers that Ali's going to come out with. If you had an FPL player priced at 4.5 million, he scored 10 points, what would be the points per million ratio? That would be a wicked maths
To be honest,
exam.
mate, there was 2 West Ham
what would be
there.
the fucking chance of me buying him?
one West Ham on our pod is bad enough. No, but Suj coined a term which Tom Campbell highlighted back to me. He's just genius. He coined the term "crapid."
Yeah.
For Ryan, in describing Ryan Fredericks, he unintentionally called him "crapid." Is young Obafemi in danger of falling into the category of crapid?
Yeah, potentially. Like there is that. There is of course that. But every time when he's played, I don't know how many league games he's played. I think he's played about 10 altogether. It could be a couple more than that. But he's scored a couple of goals, and he just looks really positive, and he looks like the type of player that's genuinely excited to put on a football shirt rather than it being a bit of a chore. Do you know what I mean? So he looks like he carries that flair. The fans are definitely excited when they see him sort of warming up and stuff like that. So I'm, really excited to see what he can offer. But then I'm also scared of if he does as well as I hope he does, that he'll be off somewhere in
Liverpool, obviously.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, in the swap for 36-year-old Jordan Henderson. Yeah. Well, hopefully, because I think he's won. Like as the season progresses, like Sims as well, he could get a shot. You kind of hope he's priced at 4.5. They threw this lad in at 5 million last year. It's too much, isn't it?
I just did a bit of research into our transfer links, and there's a couple that are quite interesting. So one is Ollie Watkins from Brentford. So I don't know too much about him, but Harry Wilson, who was playing on loan for Derby, which would be interesting because he'd be coming, from Liverpool down to us. So that would be interesting if it went that way around. And the last one is
these two should just join cahoots.
The goalkeeper from Fiorentina, Dragowski, who's he had quite a good season last year. I mean, I play a bit of FIFA, and I think he had a couple of Team of the Week cards, which was,
love it.
I don't watch it. He could have done sweet fuck all, but I mean, he got a couple of FIFA cards. So what can I say?
Brilliant.
So
that's why Arsenal bought Leno. You know that. Yeah, FIFA cards.
Yeah,
that's right.
Maybe Mesut Ozil's playing FIFA and telling the manager who he's got in his FIFA team.
Do you not? I mean, I suppose we should cover that quickly because obviously the keeper situation has been a bit of an upheaval. I mean, my assumption from an outside looking in, Angus Gunn will be number one and keeps the shirt now. No.
Yeah, I think that is the way it is going to go. I mean, it's not personally what I agree with. I think McCarthy did more than enough to get that shirt, but Angus Gunn also, he looked a solid option, and he will be number one. I'd be really surprised if we do bring in another keeper with those two in the squad.
Gunn's better than the other two, isn't he?
Well, yeah.
You're not sure?
No, I'm not. No, I liked McCarthy. He pretty much kept us up to the season before last.
What happened to Fraser Forster? Because at Celtic, he was
confident shot.
He was so
in the
good,
squad, wasn't he?
And he's still. I mean. I don't know if I've got a thing for broken goalkeepers, but I thought he could come back and make it into the England squad and be the England number one. But obviously you've seen it with so many keepers like Paul Robinson and Joe Hart and stuff. Once they're shot, they're shot.
That's it. Yeah, I was going to compare him to Joe Hart as well. He just seems to, his confidence was just knocked, and he was making too many errors, like simple goalkeeping errors, catching crosses and stuff like that, and he just didn't look confident taking the ball anymore.
That's interesting on Gunn, because if I was to look at 4.5 goalkeepers at the start of the season, I think Gunn would come into my thoughts. You put me off now, mate.
It's fixtures dependent. Let's wait. I'd want to see what.
Because goalkeeper, unless you're planning an early wild card, you don't want to be fucking about with that position, do you? You want to get it right. So I think Gunn as a 4.5 personally would have been someone I was keeping my eye on. Ali's well just put me off.
I hope so, yeah, because I mean the squad as a whole, I think it's better than sort of 16th, 17th place in the table. So I'd like to see us looking a bit more defensively sound next year, and also allowing the young attacking talent to, be creative with the way that they move the ball.
Yeah, I think we expect improvement. I think as an overall, I would say Southampton price wise are a very, very interesting one when the prices come out, because I still expect quite at these to be quite cheap.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I hope they will, and I hope the fixtures are kind to us at the start, because it would be nice to see the Southampton players making it into a few of our template squads, as it were.
I'd like to have Southampton away game week 1, get it over and done with.
Yeah, just get it over with. Yeah.
Mind you, when I don't go, we win. So I should just not go.
Yeah, basically.
It's a tough place to go. Like we make things difficult for teams, but I think just not consistent enough. But we are one of those teams where we play really well against decent opposition that are going to come at us. So it just depends.
I know someone else like that, West Ham.
I want to. It's on my list of away. I want to do a few more away games next season, and St Mary's is one of the ones that I'm definitely earmarked to. I want to come down to.
It's a good away day. Actually.
Yeah, I was down your neck of the woods 2 weeks ago, Ali, the bank holiday weekend.
Okay, where else were you?
I stayed at the Aegeus Bowl.
Yeah.
Because it was nice and cheap, and went down to Bournemouth with the kids. But we walked through. Take That were playing that night down at the St Mary's Stadium, if you remember.
Yeah.
So the city was buzzing with Gary Barlow and all that.
Absolutely.
Went down to the West Quay. Is it West Quay? Am I right?
Oh, West Quay, yeah.
Yeah. Nice little. It's nice down there. So yeah, hopefully I'll make it down to the away day next season.
You just Southampton anymore.
I'm a well-travelled guy, James.
I think you just butchered what I said was a good away day.
Yeah, so I actually live in Weymouth, so it's actually quite. It's about 45 minutes away from Bournemouth, about an hour and 15 from Southampton. That's the only thing that kind of stops me from getting a season ticket, because it's a bit of a mission.
Journey.
But I go to as many home games as I can, and I'll probably go to a couple of away games throughout the season if sort of I haven't got too much work on and stuff. But
yeah, of course.
When we go, tend to park in West Quay, grab a little bit of food, and then head on to the game from there.
New White Hart Lane, let me know if you're coming, mate. Ali, just before we wrap up, one thing I did want to cover with you briefly. I know you've got a soft spot for another team as well.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? And who is it?
So I'm half Scottish. My dad's Scottish, and he's an avid Rangers fan. So I'd say growing up, I was always Rangers until it got to the years when I was sort of in senior school, I think, and I wanted to support a team where I could go and watch them more than just the odd time I went up to visit, grandparents and stuff like that. So I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Rangers, but Southampton kind of grew as the team where, it was where I wanted to go to university. We tend to go to the city a few times, throughout the year. And so they were the club that I sort of migrated to in sort of my young teens, as it were. But I love Rangers as well from when I was very, very little.
So you're familiar with the sights and sounds of places like Govan, I take it?
Only from when I was younger,
That is the scariest place I've ever been in my fucking life.
You definitely hear some stories, and I mean, it was obviously worse before Rangers got themselves into financial troubles. I think it was worse when you had that actual sort of footballing rivalry that looks like it's just going to start rematerialising now. We joked on one of the podcasts this week's about it being a two-team league or a one-team league, but it would be good if Rangers could put a bit of pressure on Celtic.
And it will happen. Yeah. Stevie G's is definitely got the bit between his teeth.
This is it, and he doesn't. I don't think he thinks he's done enough yet. I think he's a winner, isn't he? He's a born winner, and he'll be looking to push that team on, and with a little bit of investment, they will be challenging. I mean, I think we're losing a couple of players. So Kent is going to be moving into the Premier League or Championship, at least, I think, he was one of our best attacking players last season. But it was nice to be beating Celtic a couple of times and beating them quite comfortably, like dominating the game as well, and frustrating some of their more experienced players. Like that's what I can remember when I was growing up, that it was always really feisty, rather than just going into a game and thinking, okay, well, this is a game where we can write off this weekend and just focus on the next one.
How's Jermaine been getting on up there?
Yeah, I mean, he's about 72 years old.
Love
so
him,
he
mate.
does his bit.
I love Jermaine.
Yeah, he does his bit. He plays when he can, but Morelos is the number. He's got the number 9.
Yeah, but if he could go through a game without getting sent off, right?
He's got more red cards than he does appearances, I think.
He not gets sent off every time he played Aberdeen.
It is Aberdeen. What is it with him?
Incredible.
Yeah. That's what the club's needed, and it's needed that sort of passion to drive them on and
get a bit of backbone and desire to want to win in there.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, I love that.
Good stuff. Ali, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you for coming on.
Enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
Just let the guys know where they can follow you quickly before you go.
Yeah, so I'll just say about Academica's Twitter as well. So Academica's Twitter handle is @FPL Academica. The badge is a badge that we found for a non-league football team out in, FPL Drew will kill me for this, I think it's like Colombia. He'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Where Drew retweets his shit from, it probably could be, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, and then my Twitter handle is @FPL_Gaffer.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mate.
And of course, we're looking forward to having you writing and giving us content for Saints next season as well.
Hopefully
and especially now that we've got Hassenhuttl there, maybe there'll be even more FPL assets that we might be looking at.
Yeah, hopefully, mate. Can't wait. Thanks so much for having me on, guys.
No problem.
Pleasure, mate. All that's left to say, Serge, your line?
Well, I'm just saying, is there anything else to say other than ciao for now?
No. Cue music, man, child. Thanks, Ali.
Cheers, guys.
The Fantasy Football Show.